試咪試咪，光復香港，時代革命，五大訴求缺一不可。試咪試咪。Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 5 demands, not one less. 5 demands, not one less. Is that all right?
試咪試咪試咪試咪，光復香港，時代革命，試咪。請問聽下清唔清楚 ？OK 啊嘛，唔該。試咪試咪試咪試咪，光復香港，時代革命，清唔清楚？
試咪試咪，光復香港，時代革命。
試咪試咪，光復香港，時代革命，五大訴求缺一不可。試咪試咪。
Testing testing， 試咪清唔清楚 ？Testing testing。好多謝各位記者今日出席第13次嘅民間記者會。今次嘅主題係法治淪喪，人民自衛。今日主要有3個環節，分別係中英文發言人、市民分享同埋問答環節。我哋好感謝基進報道一直為我哋提供手語傳譯員。好抱歉，由於今日時間趕迫，佢哋未能出席我哋今日嘅記者會。希望大家都繼續關注手語傳譯嘅普及性，保障聾人嘅知情權。Thank you very much for attending the 13th Citizen Press Conference today. A very warm welcome from us here. Our theme today is the death of law and order, defend to survive. The conference will be divided in 3 parts. We will begin with the Chinese and English speeches, followed by a sharing section by our guest speakers on the specialized topic pertinent to our theme today. And we will finish by a Q&A section. We are very grateful for Radical Hong Kong for providing us with sign language interpreters all along. As the press conference was pulled together in short notice, they are not able to attend the press conference today. We hope that everyone continue to bring awareness to the universality of sign language interpretation and the right to know for people with hearing disability. 開始之前，我哋請台上嘅嘉賓企起身俾記者影幅相先。Before we start, we do have a brief photography section for the press. So if the panel would please stand for a minute, please. Thank you. 發言人請望左。發言人可以望中間。發言人可以望右邊。 差唔多啦，咁我哋可以請發言人坐翻低，唔該晒。I hope the press have all had the time to get the photos. The panel may take the seats now. Thank you again. 喺正式發言之前，我哋希望各位先觀看一條短片。Before the speeches, we would like to show the audience a short video that we have produced for today's theme.
警方處理公眾活動咧，喺武力使用方面咧，係以一個克制啦、忍讓嘅態度去協助市民表達意見。
立場新聞嘅記者同埋另一位行家係俾大批白衫民眾圍毆。
我哋刑事偵緝嘅同事咧，就入呢個村咧作咗一個調查，但係頭先當時咧，我都唔見佢哋係有揸攻擊性武器嘅。
我哋針對嘅係違法行為同埋違法事件，同佢着咩衫或者佢係咩人，其實係冇一個直接嘅關係喺度嘅。
當時嚟講，我能夠停阻住佢嗰個面容啦。呢一個咁樣安排，其實喺當時當刻，我唔覺得有啲咩嘅問題啦。偏幫某一邊一定唔會有啲咁嘅事發生嘅。
我哋使用適當武力制服佢。
因為你係犯，你犯咗法，就要除晒受身。
門牙都甩埋啊！對唔住啊！
各位記者朋友，大家好。前排咧，微博上面有一句説話咧，好熱門嘅，叫做我支持香港警察，你可以打我了。但係當示威者站上街頭，見到嘅事實係我支持香港警察，我可以打人了。中共日前透過黨媒《環球時報》表示，堅決支持香港警方嚴正執法，堅決支持愛國愛港人士捍衛香港法治。直接咁樣將香港警察、北角福建幫、荃灣藍衣人同埋元朗嘅白衣人並列齊名。無論係制度內定係制度外嘅維穩勢力，無論係警棍定係水喉通，喺五星紅旗嘅統領之下，一齊去維護香港所謂嘅法治。香港人永遠都唔會忘記721元朗事件、8月5號嘅荃灣事件同埋9月15號嘅北角事件。愛國愛黨嘅黑社會多次咁樣無差別咁樣去攻擊香港市民，甚至可以講係恐襲。香港人一直最初咧都係堅持和平抗爭，例如我哋見到淘大青少年硬食中年漢13拳，拳拳打頭，但係佢依然唔還手。但係之後多次嘅生命威脅，令到市民意識到我哋有自救嘅必要。於是乎喺9月15號北角當晚，被逼民兼警職去保護自己，對抗區內有恃無恐嘅暴力福建幫。可能大家會諗，點解我哋唔可以去心平氣和咁樣去勸走一班藍絲？點解我哋唔可以報警處理呢？因為喺8月5號當日，荃灣有一個藍絲拎住把戒刀，俾市民制止咗，但係市民只不過將佢鬧走咗啫。但係緊接落嚟嘅係嗰個藍絲聯群結隊咁樣咧，去分開條街道度斬人，最終有一名青年俾人斬到隻左腳嘅肌肉幾乎全部斷開，極大機會永久失去知覺。因為9月15號福建幫佢哋攞摺凳追打市民，警察上前查問之後咧，竟然係放生施襲嘅福建幫。 着黑衫嘅青年反而俾人拘捕。呢啲事件呢，唔係個別例子，類似嘅個案呢都多不勝數。愛國愛黨嘅黑社會手持鐵通菜刀，明顯地對市民作出一啲嚴重嘅生命威脅。而警察嘅責任本來係應該保護市民，但係佢哋竟然同黑社會搭膊頭、握手，甚至同佢哋講話多謝你哋支持警察。警察、流民同氣連枝，擺明車馬咁樣選擇性執法，令到好多市民喺遇襲之後都唔敢報警，因為佢哋驚喺警黑合作底下會由原告變成被告。香港人而家係別無他法，先至被逼自我防衛。黑社會手持嘅武器呢，已經由721嘅藤條升級至915嘅摺凳、菜刀。本來北角事件呢係會成為元朗恐襲嘅升級版，但係可恨嘅係最終悲劇冇重演到。而個關鍵正正就係香港人今次願意挺身而出，為民除害，以直報怨，對一啲唔應該喺文明社會出現嘅暴力作出反抗，本住不會主動出手同埋絕不傷及無辜嘅原則作出自衛，絕對唔係所謂嘅私了，而係以武抗黑，合理自衛，同警察同黑社會一啲無差別嘅恐襲有住本質上同埋顯而易見嘅區別。涉嫌入稟發動721元朗恐襲嘅何君堯呢，講過話喺9月21號發起清潔香港運動，行動劍指咧全港18區嘅連儂牆。雖然佢琴日係撤銷咗不反對通知書嘅申請，但佢仍然喺社交媒體上面講話清潔運動依然會繼續原定嘅時間喺9月21號舉行。我哋可以預見到咧，我哋都會擔心愛國愛黨嘅黑社會將會再次咁樣大規模出動，聯同警察互相保衛配合，繼續大肆向無辜市民施襲。香港嘅法治制度已經土崩瓦解，制度內已經會有任何公信力嘅執法力量去保護市民。抗爭者變得更加勇武，係因為一句説話：是你教我們和平遊行沒有用的。而家香港人選擇自衛，都係因為一句説話：是你教我們捱打沒有用的，報警沒有用。我哋衷心希望有一日香港人可以重拾免於恐懼嘅自由，但喺嗰日來到之前，每個人都有權自衛。呢場時代革命 ，Be Water 係我哋一直嘅信念，希望各位謹記。我哋可以細流如水，無形無相，但面對警黑濫暴，我哋同樣可以剛堅如冰，不畏懼，不易碎。今日我哋已經匯聚成為一個能夠震撼時代嘅洪流。請堅持到底，保護你身邊每一同行嘅香港人，以柔制剛，自由則剛，光復香港，時代革命，願榮光歸香港。多謝各位。
Testing. The death of law and order, defend to survive. While the faces of pro-democracy protesters were being dragged across the pavement, their heads smashed by batons, Fujian mobs were allowed to check the phones, take a smoke, and hide their faces behind shields of police to protect their privacy. When young local residents were being arbitrarily arrested, pro-Beijing thugs having just finished their beatings of the residents were escorted to leave the scene with arms around their shoulders. September 15th was another night of lawlessness. The double standards here cannot be any more blatant. This is far from the first time police have sided with pro-Beijing thugs. Our police force is not just apathetic to crime committed against Hong Kong citizens, but actively cooperating with gangs and the government's plot to kill us. Against this backdrop, we pose this question: how much violence must one endure before taking actions to defend themselves? How many injuries can one sustain without fighting back? In the beginning, Hong Kong people demonstrated exceptional self-control. A Lennon War volunteer in Kowloon Bay even took 13 punches without returning one single blow. But they have clearly misunderstood our self-restraint to mean encouragement. Turn the other cheek, they say. But 2 cheeks later, won't we run out of cheeks to turn? Having been placed above the law, pro-Beijing thugs have continued to threaten and oppress neighborhoods over the past 2 months. Our inaction had only fueled further attacks. On the 5th of August, a was stopped by a passerby and asked to leave. He returned the same night, flanked by more white-shirted men, and slashed a young man, nearly severing his limbs. Pro-Beijing thugs cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped by words. Our tolerance of their violence only brings more injuries. The very same would have happened last weekend if not for the men and women brave enough to stand up against the Fujian gang. In a dystopian world where criminals can beat up citizens, then be congratulated by the police for a job well done, where they feel unhindered in carrying out attempted murders against passerby and journalists because they know that they will be protected by the police. In this dystopian world, the people of Hong Kong have been given no choice but to accept that we must fight for our own lives. Fight for our own survival, without fear of any person and with malice and ill will towards none. Since police force will not observe their own oath, with no choice but to do it for them. We do not start fights. We are not violent. We are protecting ourselves against violence. We are standing up for those close to us, for the Hong Kong we love. It is clear now that legitimacy of this government is in tatters. Whatever social contract between it and its people has been broken. The government can no longer guarantee the safety of its own citizens, or the enforcement of their own most basic rights. In this state of lawlessness and injustice, the government has forfeited its own right to rule. According to English philosopher John Locke, under such circumstances, the people have the right and duty of revolution as the final check of tyranny. Last week, the Hong Kong people decided that they had endured enough. They acted in self-defense. They fought back. What alternative did they have, apart from to allow the city to descend into a lock-in state of nature, regressing back to a frightening reality existed before the rise of human civilization? A war of all against all. Next week, as advised on September the 21st, our Right Honourable Mr. Junius Janitor Ho has decided to further his career in the cleaning industry by organising a Clean Hong Kong campaign. This, effectively, is a landlord destroying spree to take place in all 18 districts. We sincerely applaud to Mr. Ho for his devotion to not only as the face of Hong Kong, but also his great effort in uniting the Fujian gang with pro-government communities. On a more serious note, we remind Mr. Ho and his team of inexperienced cleaners that cleaning tools do not include steel rods or machetes. Should they choose to attack Hong Kong citizens during any cleaning jobs, we should not hesitate to defend ourselves and retaliate. We do not seek victory out of spite. We seek it because our survival depends on it. May glory be to Hong Kong. 光復香港，時代革命 Free Hong Kong, revolution of our times.
我哋有位目擊9月14號炮台山福建幫拆連農場打人事件嘅街坊，佢會以影片嘅方式同我哋分享佢嘅感受。Here's a video testimony by a local resident in the Fortress Hill area who witnessed the destruction of the local land wall on the day by the Hokkien gangsters.
你好，我係一個北角嘅街坊。喺9月14號嘅下晝大概1點35分左右，我當時係行到去炮台山嘅地鐵站附近。咁而當時我亦都見到係有好大批嘅藍衫人士喺炮台山嘅連儂牆嗰度聚集，拆緊標語，有啲甚至行埋上樓梯等等嘅排圍。咁我估為數大概都有近100人。咁但到後來我亦都見到咧，突然間佢哋有好大嘅變動啦。原來佢哋當時喺度打緊附近嘅街坊。咁當時係有啲後生仔，甚至係有後生女咧，係俾佢哋圍打啦、推跌啦，甚至係拳打腳踢。咁當時其實係覺得好憤怒嘅。雖然佢哋唔知點解喺度拆緊牆，咁但係本來街坊同佢哋冇爭執，但係突然之間佢哋就連身邊嘅街邊嘅路人亦都打埋一份。咁而係睇唔到任何嘅原因嘅。佢哋揮動國旗，佢哋用啲國旗嚟打嗰幾位街坊啦。咁而當時其實都有其他嘅街坊圍住勸佢哋唔好打，但係因為嗰班藍衫嘅人士實在太多，雖然當時我自己並冇着黑色衫，亦都冇戴到口罩，但因為我亦都係一個後生仔，所以我亦都擔心喺我路過嘅時候，即使我冇勸交，甚至係只係路過都好，都會俾佢哋打埋一份。咁但到後來咧，警方亦都嚟到現場。咁但警方嚟到現場之後咧，佢哋就只係將兩邊嘅人分開。分開之後就叫街坊嗰邊冷靜，但係就完全冇處理到藍衫嘅人士。當時有街坊目擊過程，然之後同警方講話係要報案，要拘捕疑犯，但係警方係完全係冇聽到街坊嘅一啲質問啦。咁但係就只係叫街坊一直要冷靜，並且係讓後面藍衫嘅人士一邊換衫，然之後向天后嗰邊嘅方向散去。咁所以作為一個街坊，其實係感覺到係非常之傷心。原來我哋作為街坊喺自己嘅社區嗰度，喺附近食飯啦，或者係路過，都會有生命嘅危險，可能會俾人攻擊。但係即使係警方到埋現場，都唔會將呢啲疑犯繩之於法。所以我哋會覺得呢個係一個自己嘅社區失去咗一種信心。除咗有一啲其他帶住口音嘅福建人士喺度聚集並且打人之外，亦都見到警方可能係會選擇性執法。並冇將相應嘅人士繩之於法。咁所以喺而家呢一刻，我哋就算係我落街啦，我都唔敢會貿貿然着住黑色衫出街，亦都唔會戴住口罩出街。會感覺到呢個社區喺度行嘅時候，我會多咗一份陌生感，會好顧忌喺行過嘅時候，會唔會有其他嘅唔同嘅可疑嘅人士聚集，甚至擔心自己即使只係放工翻屋企路過嘅時候，都會俾人攻擊。例如話咧，喺8月11日嘅港島東遊行嗰一日，咁我當時係喺北角嘅新都城對面嗰度啦，咁大概喺華豐國貨嘅位置。咁當時咧喺富林皇宮嗰邊，其實聚集咗好多紅衫嘅人士，着住一啲有福建嘅字眼嘅 T 恤嘅。當時佢哋會打路過嘅記者啦，甚至係一啲路過嘅學生啦等等。咁但當時咧，企喺華豐國貨嗰一邊，有好多唔同嘅北角街坊，相對年齡都係比較老嘅，亦都係操住福建嘅口音。當時會見到咧，佢哋一旦有富林皇宮嗰邊打人，佢哋就會大聲嗌話打得好，快啲打死佢等等嘅字句。咁會見到原來當福建嘅人士係有暴力嘅行為嗰陣時咧，佢哋係會全力去支持福建人士嘅行為，甚至係會覺得咁樣做係應該嘅。咁所以就呢個係其一啦。後來亦都見到咧，佢哋會直接指責咗示威者係收過錢嘅，或者係受到其他外國嘅勢力所影響。喺嗰個811嘅事件之後，後來我喺街上亦都聽到有唔少嘅福建嘅街坊啦，係會大聲咁樣講話嗰一日全靠係因為有福建嘅人士嚟到北角嗰邊保衞家園啦。咁所以示威者到最後係冇聯群結隊咁樣嚟到北角，係守衞咗北角嘅。咁可以見到原來喺呢啲暴力事件之中咧，到最後係反而令到呢啲街坊覺得呢啲唔少嘅北角街坊咧，特別係福建嘅籍貫嘅人士咧，係會覺得原來有暴力嘅行為，反而係值得佢哋支持。
嗱，咁或者都問一問，咁其實915咁有示威者係喺北角嗰度同福建幫有衝突啦。咁對於呢一件事，你覺得點樣影響到一班作為街坊嘅你哋有咩睇法咧？
我諗我係會當然我哋見到有任何嘅爭執都係會覺得擔憂嘅，因為始終擔心拳腳無眼之下咧，一般路過嘅街坊都會受傷。但係另一方面咧，我哋亦都理解點解當日嘅示威者會有咁樣嘅行為， 因為可以見到例如話喺914嗰一日啦，咁有好多嘅路過嘅街坊，其實只係經過連儂牆，但係又亦都會俾藍衫着住藍衫嘅人士咧係追打，甚至推落地面。咁而另一方面咧，喺再之前，例如話8月5日或者8月11日，亦都見到好多福建幫嘅人士咧係會對示威者或者路過嘅記者等等咧係有拳打腳踢嘅行為。但係好奈何咧，咁多單嘅事件入面，亦都見唔到街坊嘅人身安全點樣可以得到保障，包括係警方拘捕疑犯，又或者係佢哋點樣可以全身而退，都係明顯係擔憂嘅。所以喺915嗰一日，見到有示威者會選擇用自衛還擊嘅方法對待一啲挑釁嘅福建人士咧，其實係能夠理解嘅。咁所以就當然我哋唔想見到任何嘅暴力行為，但係喺嗰一日，我哋會認為咧即使示威者當時有還擊，其實都係情有可原嘅。
接下嚟有一位中學生分享佢對炮台山打鬥事件嘅看法。We have invited a Fortress Hill Secondary School student to share his thoughts on what happened on that day。
咁我係一個喺炮台山返學嘅中學生啦，我一直都有留意反送中運動嘅，知道721開始就有黑社會嘅介入啦，令市民極度不安，為社會帶來除咗黑警之外另一種嘅恐懼。直到近期，北角福建幫嘅都有開始行動啦，而附近返學嘅學生，包括我同埋身邊嘅同學，每日都要提心吊膽。咁點解年輕人要受到呢啲嘅恐懼？福建幫襲擊市民嘅地點係我每日返學放學必經之路，我哋可以點樣先保障到同學嘅安全呢？面對黑社會同埋黑警無差別嘅突襲、無理拘捕之後狂打至頭破血流，甚至昏迷危殆，香港已經失去咗僅餘嘅法治。而面對呢啲恐懼嘅時候，香港人只可以靠自己。不過就由一個好熱鬧、有人情味嘅社區，變成一個三不管嘅地區。而我哋返學放學都要非常小心謹慎去留意周圍有冇可疑嘅人物監視住自己，或者將隻手收埋埋，驚會俾人突然間襲擊，斬斷手筋、腳筋。而我哋守護之路同埋結伴同行呢兩個行動嘅原意係為集眾人之力一同返學嘅，保護各位學生，令大家可以安全返學，免受傷害。事緣係喺上星期六，即係9月14號，有一批自稱愛國撐警嘅人士手持5星紅旗喺炮台山一帶圍聚，肆意清拆連儂牆，其後更加攻擊向佢哋表達不滿嘅年輕途人，而且波及無辜。而警方嘅不作為同埋徇私偏袒嘅執法態度更加令人擔憂。事發地點係喺鄰近一帶學校學生返學嘅常經之地，當日亦有同學途經，但係所幸未有受傷。再者喺翌日，即係9月15號，北角炮台山一帶再次爆發大型嘅衝突事宜，香港警察聯同黑社會無故攻擊無辜嘅群眾，及後放任傷人者離去，同埋胡亂拘捕市民。當中如同過往一樣，同樣使用咗過度嘅武力。有同學喺課外活動完結之後，喺事發地點附近等車嘅時候，險親歷此事。幸喺事態未嚴重惡化嘅時候，因為有朋友嘅告知情況下而走避及時，返回雲景道一帶嘅逃避嘅時候，網上已經有大量喺佢附近一帶所發生嘅警暴同埋濫捕嘅片段流傳。慶幸各位同學走得夠快，如果唔係佢可能而家喺醫院，或者已經俾人拘捕。佢表示當時好驚自己會俾人拉、俾人打，而佢只係啱啱完成課外活動，點解佢要受到呢種刺激？面對呢啲恐懼，明明只係一個 啱啱完成課外活動嘅中學生，理應可以好安全咁返屋企休息。有見及此，為免同類事件再次發生時，而同學孤身一人無力與惡勢力抗衡，兩校嘅關注組曾經兩度籌備同埋舉行呢個一齊返學嘅活動，希望可以保護同學同埋俾佢哋可以平安返學放學。而警方執法方面，我認為現時報警已經係完全冇用，甚至會將自己置身於一個更加危險嘅處境，譬如由原告變成被告，令自己變成俾人拉、俾人制服嗰一位。所以我認為到咗呢個階段，香港人就只可以自保。既然香港警察都唔會再為香港人服務，咁點解我哋仲要去報警呢？分分鐘仲慘過唔去報警。但就係因為咁，香港人突然間變得更加團結，會守望相助。當手足有難嘅時候，會即刻去救佢，即使大家互不相識。就例如禮拜日嗰位惡意士，嗰3位被拘捕嘅人士係佢唔識嘅，但正正因為佢係香港人同為手足，佢唔可以見死不救，佢選擇咗犧牲自己去救人。最終佢被黑警毆打至頭破血流，同埋被控襲警罪。黑警已經成為香港人嘅敵人，即使黑社會同埋福建幫無差別咁打人斬人，佢哋都唔會理會，更加會同你講驚就唔好出街嘛，呢啲嘲諷你嘅説話。所以面對暴力，我係完全認同同埋支持香港人應該自保。
So we have invited a Fortress Hill Secondary student to share what he saw and what its thoughts are and what happened on the day.
I'm a secondary school student and I go to school in Fortress Hill. I have been following the anti-extradition movement and how, since the 21st of July, not only the Hong Kong police force but also triads have been terrorizing Hong Kong. This has been confirmed by the recent events in North Point. The students who attend school in these areas, including my friends and classmates, fear for their lives every single day. Why should young students have to face this terror? The spot where the Fokin gang attack citizens is exactly where my feet traverse every day when I go to school. How are we guaranteeing the safety of Hong Kong's young students? Every day we face indiscriminate attacks and arbitrary arrests, as well as being bludgeoned over our heads upon arrest, to the point where many have been left in a coma or even on a verge of death. In the face of this terror, what choice do we have but to rely on ourselves? We are the only ones left to fend for our own safety. Whenever we go to school, we feel watched. We are constantly paranoid if someone is hiding their hands. Are they going to attack us out of the blue and chop off our arms, our legs, and our tendons? Initially, this event was created as a response to what happened on Saturday. A bunch of Hong Kong in I Love Hong Kong t-shirts and holding the Chinese national flag first ripped off London walls, then attacked and even ganged up on young passers-by. The hope of this event was simply to ensure that our fellow students can safely go to school and go home afterwards. However, during the preparation for our event, an even more serious and large-scale attack happened on Sunday, perpetrated by the Fokin triads. One of my classmates even told me that she was almost caught up in the middle of it, as she was heading home after some extracurricular activities. Shouldn't she be going home after a long day to relax and unwind? Why should she have to go through the torture and trauma of witnessing these events instead? From a law enforcement perspective, I truly believe that calling 999 is no longer an effective way to get yourself out of danger. In fact, it will probably land you in even more danger, given that the Hong Kong police force is now famous for turning complainants into defendants in criminal proceedings. At this stage, I strongly believe that our only option is self-defense. Paradoxically, the bittersweet truth is that negative cohesion against this evil force have really united Hong Kongers. We always look out for each other and will not hesitate to save another person's life if he or she is in danger. It doesn't matter whether we know each other or not. Have sacrificed their own safety to save others. The Hong Kong police force has made themselves the enemy of Hong Kong, so it is only fair that we should take active steps to defend ourselves. I fully support anybody who does choose to take active steps in defending themselves.
唔該晒中學生嘅分享。我哋接下來請有一位當時有幫忙保護街坊嘅朋友上嚟分享。Thank you for the secondary school student for sharing his thoughts. We have also invited the protesters who was present in the Fortress Hill that day to share his thoughts on using force for self-defense.
喺915大遊行之後，大量和平嘅示威者被警察武力清場，逼到去天后炮台山一帶。現場有福建幫攻擊市民。近日扎根喺炮台山同埋北角一帶嘅福建幫3番4次挑剔、無差別攻擊一般市民，以及手無寸鐵嘅連儂牆手足。勇武前線唔再想見到721嘅事件再次喺炮台山同埋北角發生，因此佢哋必須出現去保護當地嘅街坊。以下係我當時喺北角見到嘅情況。首先有大量福建幫混入咗街坊入邊，佢哋企晒喺街邊，而有福建幫嘅人曾經喺一啲閂咗嘅檔位攤檔之中攞一啲攻擊性嘅武器出嚟，目測係一啲長條形嘅棍狀物體，相信係鐵通。但係警察就喺5至10米之外，但係仍然無動於衷。當日喺嗰度有大量嘅防暴警察，但係我見唔到有防暴警察去拉過任何嘅福建幫。而呢啲福建幫大量咁匿藏喺一啲後街，包括馬寶道、春秧街等等。亦都曾經有人見過有一啲福建幫嘅領袖吹雞，成班福建幫圍埋一齊，人數大約20至30人喺度討論緊佢哋嘅對策。現場亦都有福建幫打人，警察其實就喺幾米之外，但係冇拉到任何福建幫。另外，警察沿英皇道同埋糖水街係一字排開嘅，當時阻止任何人接近富林以及英皇道以南近寶馬山山腳嘅位置，亦都係大部分福建幫匿藏嘅位置。因此，我哋絕對有理由相信警黑係合作緊。喺冇人衝擊嘅情況之下，當晚警方發射咗催淚彈。以我哋所見，近全部記者同埋市民都係毫無防備同準備，冇戴任何防毒嘅面具。以我哋喺糖水街所見，警察係並冇舉黑旗。警察其後有喺馬寶道等等嘅地方拉人，或者係查問或者扣查咗一啲示威者同埋普通嘅市民。而呢一啲地方就係福建幫匿藏嘅位置。呢啲福建幫佢哋仍然喺警察拉人嘅時候，可以大無私樣咁樣行喺啲街上面，然後警察就繼續拉人、搜查佢哋，搜查其他示威者。所以總結嚟講，現場係根本冇人衝擊，除咗記者、福建幫之外，大部分人都係街坊。我哋唔明白點解警察要拉人。 我想各位試諗下，當一個城市不斷受到暴徒恐怖襲擊，而掌握權力以及武力嘅警察仍然無動於衷，任由呢啲福建幫等等嘅恐怖分子無差別攻擊香港市民，係咪有需要有一班人勇敢企出嚟去保護返大家嘅家園？我想講嘅係，勇武前線絕對唔會主動攻擊，而係對方出手，即將有人受傷或者已經有人受傷，勇武先會保護返示威者同埋一般市民。而勇武亦都要話俾佢哋知，就算警黑合作、暴力當道，香港人都唔會因為強權嘅威逼而放棄爭取5大訴求，放棄我哋嘅初衷。有人問過勇武派本身擔唔擔心自己會受傷或者有法律責任？我想講嘅就係，對比起831所有受傷、死亡以及喺新屋嶺被凌辱嘅手足，少少幾條瘡疤又何足掛齒？我諗好多勇武都預咗俾人拉。至於係咪擔心有法律嘅責任，我覺得話唔擔心一定係假嘅。但係喺公義同守法相比之間，勇武絕對係傾向前者。最後就係想同和理非講嘅説話，有好多人喺612、721之前都仲話唔可以以暴制暴。我都聽過身邊嘅和理非同埋同路人質疑勇武究竟係咪收咗錢出嚟。但係自呢幾個月來，721同埋不少嘅恐怖襲擊出現咗之後，已經有一批和理非嘅人變成勇武。佢哋出嚟嘅原因並唔係受到所謂嘅煽動，而係正正見住佢哋呢個生於斯、長於斯，喺幾個月前仲可以享受自由嘅香港，不斷受到港共政權、黑警以及愛國人士嘅衝擊。佢哋知道自己再唔行出嚟，化身勇武自保，佢哋就會係下一個721、831等等受到恐怖分子、黑警攻擊嘅受害人。既然法律賦予執法權力嘅黑警已經無法再執行啦，冇再有執法嘅能力，包括包庇福建幫、黑社會斬人，甚至無差別攻擊香港嘅平民市民。香港人必須放下道德上嘅枷鎖，實行民間自衛，以實踐公義，並且繼續爭取5大訴求。After the peaceful demonstration in Wan Chai on the 15th of September, the police again cracked down on protesters with tear gas, chemicals-filled water cannons, riot police, and special tactical units. Some peaceful protesters were forced to flee from Central, Admiralty, Wan Chai, and all the way to Causeway Bay, Fortress Hill, and North Point. Since then, Fujian triads based in Fortress Hill have attacked civilians once again, following the terror attack on the 21st of September. In Yuen Long, following the terror attack on the 21st of July in Yuen Long, and the multiple attacks unleashed by the same group of people over August and September. We believe the frontline protesters do not want such terror attack to happen again. Thus, they rushed to the scene to maintain peace, defend civilians, whilst the police was in cahoots with the mobsters, failing its duty in maintaining peace, order, and arresting the mobsters. Hong Kong people cannot tolerate another terror attack to happen again. The frontliners would only defend themselves with adequate amount of force when they see civilians are getting hurt imminently or already being bitten. They never want to resort to violence if the police can uphold its duty and neutrality when treating crimes. However, it is not the case as seen from innumerable incidents since June, where the police always turned a blind eye on protesters or civilians when they get hurt by triad members. Even in the darkest time, there have to be people defending the city, which we call home. And there goes the frontliners. Some people asked if the frontliners are afraid of being arrested, detained, jailed, charged, or injured. Frankly speaking, it would be unreasonable to say no, especially with all the selective prosecution, and political persecution from the police and the government, respectively. But I believe most of the frontliners have already prepared for getting jailed and charged. However, between abiding by an unjust law and fully manifesting justice, I believe most people would stick to the latter. We shall not let fear to restrain us from fighting for freedom. Likewise, frontliners are not afraid of getting injured despite the extreme brutality seen from the police, especially the numerous reports of abuse of power in the Sun Oak Lane Detention Center. There is always a price to be paid for freedom, and they are ready for that. For multiple times, I have heard people questioning whether the frontliners are being paid to do all these things over the past months, even from peaceful and rational protesters, let alone those pro-China people. They were against using force to counter violence. However, over the past months, particularly after the incidents on the 21st of July in Yunlong and the multiple attacks on protesters at District Lenin Walls, some previous peaceful and rational protesters have been awakened and enlightened. They know that nothing and no one can help them to protect themselves other than gearing up themselves against the pro-tyranny mobs, as law and law enforcer have failed their duty and selectively favored the pro-establishment group. There will be an increasing number of indiscriminate attacks, and Hong Kong people shall consider abandoning their moral high ground and implement civil defense to fight for justice and the 5 demands. Thank you.
好多謝各位嘉賓嘅發言，接下來就會到問答環節。因為時間有限，所以請每間報館問不多於2條問題，並且喺發問之前講一講自己係邊一間報館，同埋我哋嘅中學生喺今次嘅記者會係唔會答任何問題。We shall now have the Q&A section of the day. Due to the limited time we have today, we would like to ask each journalist on the ground to pose no more than 2 questions at a time. And please do give your affiliation as well before your questions. And also, our secondary school students will not answer any questions. Thank you.
你好，香港01㗎。好，喂，聽到 ？OK。哦，得唔得 ？OK，聽到。你好，香港01嘅，想問翻咧，即係其實之後一啲嘅可能嗰啲嘅清潔連儂牆嘅行動啦，其實都可能會係陸續有嚟啦。咁其實你哋會點樣去對待咧？即係之後係會採取一個冷處理嘅方法啊，定係真係會即係號召啲人落現場咧？咁另外就係即係近期其實都有一啲好多網上面嘅人都話會去即係去守護連儂牆啊，或者係落好似淘大上次咁樣，都有啲即係反修例嘅人士係落咗現場，去到同一啲唔同政見嘅人士可能係口角，咁之後係有打鬥嘅。咁即係其實擔唔擔心呢啲類型嘅事件再發生，其實令到嗰個抗爭嘅主線係轉移咗咧？唔該。
Testing。首先好多謝記者嘅提問，記者問咗2條問題。第一條係問關於聽日嘅何君堯舉行嘅清潔連儂牆，佢想問就係我哋會點樣去處理呢件事？我哋見到何君堯咧，佢之前咧就申請不反對通知書，佢咧想做一個清潔行動，清潔18區嘅連儂牆，但係佢琴日咧已經撤銷咗佢嗰個申請，但係佢堅持話咧呢個行動依然繼續。我哋可以先睇一睇佢呢個行動呢個行為造成啲咩負面影響。喺何君堯宣布呢個清潔日令出嚟之後咧，聖士提反女子中學咧決定取消佢嘅水運會，甚至有小學咧會取消佢嘅賣旗籌款，幼稚園會取消家長會，呢啲係一個影響民生嘅後果嚟。其次，如果真係有人喺聽日或者之後嘅日子去撕連儂牆嘅話，我相信香港人只會撕一貼百。如果再有啲毆打市民嘅情況出現嘅時候，相信前線嘅手足會有相應嘅對策。其次咧，記者就係問咧，佢話一啲如果有啲好多市民想守護連儂牆啦，咁佢哋會可能會有啲爭執啦。以我哋所知咧，喺嗰啲嘅黐連儂牆嘅市民咧，佢哋係會選擇一啲譬如喺比較晚間嘅時分啦。然後我哋見到咧，原來 去摧毀連儂牆嗰啲市民咧，選擇喺早上時分施嘅。佢哋我哋堅信呢啲黐連儂牆嘅手足，佢哋會因應翻佢哋嘅能力去選擇去點樣去避免一啲咁嘅衝突。如果真係有衝突嘅時候，我相信嗰啲手足會有自己嘅對策。
仲有邊位記者？
Hello， 《癲狗日報》Mad Daily， 一個問題想問，喺其實721之後咧，一路都有人提倡話成立一個民間自衛隊。咁特別喺呢幾日發生啲事件咧，去到琴日深水埗又有係一啲襲擊嘅事件。咁其實以呢個保護街坊為主要目的咧，你覺得呢個可行性係大唔大？
都再次感謝記者嘅提問。咁記者問到關於一啲民間自衛隊嘅可行性，但我哋要搞清楚點解我哋需要自己保護自己先。個原因係有啲恐怖分子、黑社會，佢哋無差別咁樣去攻擊市民。佢哋原本喺721嘅時候用嘅只係藤條，雖然呢啲已經係好大殺傷力，但係而家用嘅甚至係菜刀咁呢啲嘅更加具攻擊性、殺傷力嘅武器。我哋見到而家市民已經唔能夠好似之前咁一味喺度捱打，俾人打完之後就純粹就喺度就算。我哋而家要做嘅咧，其實係講緊市民要選擇去自己保護自己。而我哋見到警察佢哋嘅責任係要保護市民，但係啱啱我哋前面講過，佢哋竟然望住一啲黑社會拎住啲武器鐵通咁樣，佢都可以當視而不見嘅時候，我相信我哋香港市民而家唔能夠或者唔單止只可以咧喺度唔可以再用以前嗰種方式去處理呢件事，而係有一個更加之第二種手法。而啱啱記者就問可能會有啲民間自衛隊，但如果我哋見到有手足有前線能夠做到呢樣嘢嘅時候，我哋只有呢個自衛呢個出路。
Hello, everybody. I'm Fantastico from the South American International News Group. Got a simple question. Is VK the leader of the Hong Kong protest? Is what we were hearing. I don't know if somebody can translate the question. Yeah, it's you call it a leaderless movement. We heard information about the person called VK, which is one of the the movement, the leader movement of the Hong Kong protest.
Can I please have the mic back, please?
Sure. Yeah, sorry.
Right, so about your question about the leader of the protest, we must emphasize that here we do not have a leader, we do not have one single leader here in any battle, any movement, any protest that have been arranged. Or they're not even arranged, they're just people having that sense of belonging there, knowing that this is the day that we have to take the street and march. And what goes afterwards, whether they have to decide to target different government buildings, or what are they going to do next? It's up to their decisions. They haven't been receiving any information, any sort of guidance from anybody. So all of those actions are based on those frontline protesters, and also, of course, those that are rational, peaceful, and non-violent, non-valiant protesters. What do they decide at the site, on the site? Hence, we believe that it is a leaderless protest and movement here that we are seeing. And of course, we have seen, representatives going to US Congress, representing the people of Hong Kong, representing protesters, demanding US Congress to take actions considering the Hong Kong movement. We must stress that it is up to them. Each of us who feel like we belong to this community can take up their role. Whatever it is, they can be trying to voice out our opinions, our voices to the international community. That doesn't make them the leader of the protest. It just shows that how united we are in being on our own position, trying to help to facilitate the protest and the movement and extend it until we get full democracy of Hong Kong. Is that right?
俾呢位記者。
你好，蘋果日報嘅，想問翻咧嗰個自衛嗰個底線係啲乜嘢咧？因為我哋喺前線都見過咧，有啲人係即係口角，即係先口角就後來爭執咁樣。咁啊都見過有啲人即係可能情緒比較激動咧，即係佢哋都真係會喐手咁。咁你點樣去界定嗰個即係無辜嗰個狀態係點樣？同埋即係咪完全唔需要報警咧？即係覺得警方嗰個作用喺邊度？唔該。
多謝嘅提問。咁我先答最尾條問題，就係需唔需要報警？但係我哋而家見到嘅就係例如我哋前幾日915事件入邊，我哋見到嘅係警察嚟到之後，竟然係面向市民，佢哋係攞盾牌面向市民，佢唔係面向嗰班施襲嘅黑社會。而家見到市民無故俾人打，而嗰班警察坐視不理，反而放沙啲施襲者嘅時候，我哋見唔到報警會有任何嘅幫助，反而好似我哋啱啱前面嘉賓有講過，反而會拖累咗我哋，甚至我哋可能會由原本係原告變成被告。其次係記者問有冇自衛有冇底線，而我哋唔能夠代表所有嘅示威者。其次係要視乎翻每一個情況，例如係當時嗰個爭執係啲咩，起因係啲咩先，點解佢哋會出現呢樣嘢？例如有啲人係會因為撕連儂牆啦，而後面佢哋發生咗啲口角爭執啦，然後最後就可能真係會打人咁樣。咁但係我哋會相信翻每一位喺前線嘅手足，佢哋做嘅所有嘅嘢，佢哋無論係用任何嘅武力升級，我哋見到前線嘅手足咧，佢哋唔會放棄嘅，佢哋只會一直升級。如果今日政府再唔回應我哋嘅訴求嘅話，前線嘅手足相信武力絕對會升，佢哋所做嘅嘢絕對會升級。
Hi, I'm from RTHK. On your point about self-defense of the land walls tomorrow, there are also calls from people saying that, hey, why don't the activists or whoever that is pro-movement just stay home or stay away from the land walls, let the pro-government side demolish on activists to exercise self-defense. Why don't you just let the pro-government side do what they want to do? Thank you.
Right, thank you for the question. First of all, we must stress that land and wall is actually, in nature, is a peaceful way of voicing out our views. And it's been ongoing for 3 months since June. And whilst the government has been always stressing that we must voice our views within the limitation, the boundary of the basic law, we can 100% see that doing land and walls and decorating the walls with wood and voicing our opinions in such a way is actually the most peaceful way for us to take part in the movement. Hence, we have to defend our right for peacefully exercising our civil freedom and rights, of course. So, of course, there must be risk when we stand there facing those triad members and gangsters when they're trying to tear down the walls and all the post-it notes on there. But then it's a leaderless movement. We must respect every single protesters and what do we think our frontline decisions there. So we do not have the right to tell them not to take part in guarding the wall. And also we must strongly stress that we are not willing to exercise any sort of violence. We do not want to see any force taking place on site at the scene. We want to peacefully voice out our views. But then again, we are being suppressed, we are being targeted by triad and, of course, police brutality and police forces. So for our basic peaceful rights of voicing out our views, it just has to be protected. If the government or the police force is not doing their responsibility, it's on to us. We have to be there. So again, we have to say that it is up to every one of us our own decision to decide whether we should stay at home or should we go down there and be at the tunnels, to be there by the walls and protected. So again, it just respect to every single of us decisions.
想問可唔可以即係啱啱新聞台，想問可唔可以具體講下，即係你哋講自衛其實有冇話即係譬如唔排除會做啲乜嘢啊咁，即係企喺啲街坊前面擋啊，定還是即係會點樣做咧？有冇得具體講下？同埋其實會唔會都擔心即係咁樣叫話出嚟自衛啦，反而會出現即係一個惡性循環咧？因為其實可能如果街上面冇咁多前線嘅示威者喺度嘅話，其實嗰啲福建人出到嚟即係見唔到冇目標襲擊，其實可能都即係唔會再出現咁樣打鬥，擔唔擔心反而係即係呢一個惡性循環？唔該。
回應翻記者嘅問題，我哋都非常之擔心咧，再有下一次嘅衝突發生。而呢啲衝突咧都係冇人想見到，因為我哋見到佢哋每一次打到之後咧，都有市民受傷。但係而家我哋啱啱記者有問到就係點樣去具體咁樣去有啲自衛嘅方法啦。我哋見到之前我哋嘅喺915事件入邊，甚至係嗰陣時候咧一啲黑社會佢無故地打人。咁所以咧，我哋市民見到呢件事嘅時候，我哋要諗點解佢哋會無故打人先？係因為今日政治立場嘅唔同，定係因為啲咩先？咁所以我哋見到就係、如果市民要具體即係要去針對自衛做進一步嘅行動嘅話，唔能夠好似之前咁用聲音嚟鬧走佢，唔能夠好似推推跌跌咁撞兩撞嘅話就可以對佢算。而家我哋香港人已經翻唔到轉頭，我哋要更加堅定，更加可能係唔能夠向我哋要保護好我哋每個人身邊嘅手足同埋我哋嘅前線，我哋要確保每個人嘅安全，咁樣去做抗爭。如果唔係，我哋都翻唔到轉頭。其次係咧，記者問到怕唔怕一個惡性循環，而點解會有惡性循環出現呢？正正就係而家政府唔肯回應我哋嘅訴求。如果政府一早肯回應示威者嘅訴求，唔會出現而家咁嘅局面。我哋見到嘅就係政府一次又一次咁樣去敷衍示威者，佢做一啲假諮詢、假回應，先至導致示威者被逼走上街頭，出現啱啱記者所講嘅一種鬥爭，即係一種黑社會同市民去有爭執嘅情況。而我哋都唔希望再見到呢個情況。
Thank you very much. I'm Steve Ryan from the American Freelance News, the AFN. I want to ask a question that is about the leaderless movement again. It's kind of a yes-no question. I want to be clear. VK, this person that the American News has cued as Victory Kong, are they the leader of this movement, or is this truly a leaderless movement? And then a second question for you. A lot of the international press has now left, and one of the main things that they said about leaving was that it's a leaderless movement, that it's disorganized. Would you consider becoming a movement which is following one person? Thank you.
Right, again, thank you for the question. I must be honest to you, before this press conference, I've got no idea who VK that you're mentioning about is. And definitely he's or she or whatever, whoever he is not involved in this movement in any extent. I do not see any involvement of foreign politician being leader or giving commands. I would say this is 100% a leaderless movement. I mean, we are not here because of anybody guiding us to be here. Anybody on the street, they're not being guided by anybody. So it's very obvious that there is no one single leader or any parties being the leader of this movement whatsoever. So we should, it just is very obvious if you talk to any frontline protesters or even those behind them, the rational ones that do not engage in any usage of force, they're just going to tell you the same thing, that they're not being guided, they're not being organized by any party at all. So I hope that that actually solved your question. And what's your second question again? Right. We must stress that the essence of this movement is that all of us are here because of our individual will, our belief that brings us on the street and that encourage us to go against government, to fight for democracy. We do not want any party or person in place telling us what to do and what not to do. It is against the spirit, the essence of this movement fundamentally. So it just doesn't suit whatever we are fighting for, and means that we're trying to achieve our goals. It just isn't the way that this movement essentially is. And from basically the past experience that we've had since the handover of Hong Kong, all the way to the umbrella movement and now to the anti-extradition bill movement, we can actually see the involvement of, the disadvantage of seeing one single party or group of people trying to lead the crowd and lead the mass to wherever they want to go. It has been proven wrong. It has been proven unsuccessful. So we embrace this sort of movement this time because we know that this is what unites us. This is what makes us strong. This is why this movement is so invincible that took the government more than 3 months to crack down, but they have been failing. So this is the thing, the feel that keeps this movement ongoing. It's about leaderless. It's about us being or doing whatever we deem as moral or the right thing to do.
咁應該最後一條問題啦。嗰邊藍色衫，呢邊呢度。
Hello 香港電台。想問翻清楚你哋關於即係聽日嗰個清潔香港運動咧，你哋頭先就話即係會撕一貼牌，但係其實咧都見到有啲網上啲聲音就話，即係如果而家呼籲去保護連儂牆嘅話咧，可能係一啲普通嘅市民，佢哋未必有一啲嘅武力去，即係未必有呢啲能力去承受其他人嘅威脅或者襲擊。咁其實你哋而家嘅取態會係即係呼籲啲人去保護連儂牆啊，定係話其實如果有人嚟撕嘅話就由得佢哋撕？咁另外你哋頭先就提到即係嗰個前線嘅人士啦，會有一啲相應嘅對策啦，可唔可以講講具體相應對策包括啲乜嘢咧？喺乜嘢情況之下就會有啲乜嘢嘅對策出嚟咧？唔該。
記者問到咧關於聽日撕牆嘅行動，佢問我哋應唔應該呼籲啲人出嚟。但大家要知道咧，我哋唔能夠代表所有人。我哋而家見到，我哋好多香港市民都想守護香港呢個地方。當有人想破壞香港嘅時候，我哋會用咗我哋嘅方法去保護香港。例如我哋見到聽日甚至之後日子，有人會選擇去光復屯門、去元朗，甚至有人會守護沙田入機場呢啲活動。希望大家可以留意呢啲活動，知道香港市民每一個市民佢哋都有自己嘅方法或者辦法，同埋我哋嘅方式去守護香港。萬一真係出現咗可能真係有對打嘅事件嘅時候，香港人要知道點樣保護自己，亦都係我哋今日想帶出嘅，就係香港人要知道點樣去保護自衞。其次係啱啱記者問到就係一啲前線嘅手足點樣去具體啲點樣去做，但我哋要明白，而家咧我哋係我哋逼不得已先咁做嘅，冇人想同人打交，冇人想流血嘅，但係因為有啲人去試意破壞香港，有啲人佢哋選擇去攻擊呢啲示威者，去揞住一啲反對嘅聲音，香港人先被逼要同佢哋對抗。我哋見到喺制度內，而家已經冇任何嘅辦法能夠逼政府回應訴求。 都冇任何嘅辦法去制止嗰啲蓄意傷人嘅黑社會嘅時候，我哋每一個香港人，不論前線定係有啲係其他市民都好，都要知道點樣去保護自己。
Right, a few things to add on to those questions that have been asked. I would want to clarify that it is. You might have seen on the news or on TV clips that there are, the frontline teams or some certain groups of frontline protesters adopting to a more valiant way of protest, or even going into the area where the thugs were and using force to fight off them. Those people might regard them as the leader of this protest because they're on the front line and they're using the most force here that we've all seen. Those are just, I would say, those groups of people. Fully, we do support every single action they do. They're on our side, and we do fight as one single community against the government and against this tyranny. But then, what measure, what action do they adopt? It's up to them. We can't point our fingers at them and trying to accuse them for being the leader of this movement simply because they were at the front line of the protest. So, again, I just want to stress that it's not actions or what position do you take that makes you the leader of this movement. It's our one single common belief to fight against tyranny, to fight for democracy, and fight for the 5 demands we're now asking for. Also, apart from the goals that we're trying to achieve, what brings us out there on the street is just basically because we feel for other protesters. Their suffering is our suffering. Their pain is our pain. And that is the one thing that brings us together as one single community of a common destiny. And that is what unites us, that empowers us as being the strongest movement since the history of Hong Kong.
我哋仲有一條最後嘅問題，唔該。
宣布咗話下個星期四咧有一個對話平台啦，咁會唔會有啲咩對應嘅策略，或者係會想會有一啲圍堵嘅行動啦，或者係點樣睇呢個平台？另外另一條問題咧就係警方呢兩日咧經常攻擊啲示威者話咧你哋嘅汽油彈就已經超出咗自衛嘅範圍啦。咁想請問一啲前線嘅或者係唔同嘅手足係你哋有咩睇法咧？對呢一種説法？
好多謝記者嘅提問。首先講下林鄭未來會講個對話平台。其實對話呢一早已經展開咗3個幾月。我哋而家要嘅對話呢，唔係好似以前咁坐喺間房度10幾個人圍內傾完就算。林鄭話下個禮拜會遲啲會喺灣仔嗰度有一個可以報名有150人嘅對話，但係嗰度咁多人係咪能夠代表我哋全香港200萬人嘅訴求呢？對話嘅意義係我哋表達自己嘅聲音。我哋近3個幾月來，我哋民間記者會，甚至係可能警方都有記者會，大家都有表達過自己嘅訴求。而家嘅表達已經唔係要局限於以前嗰種模式。我哋而家正正就係講5大訴求，缺一不可。呢樣嘢大家都好清楚。而呢個呢，我哋認為林鄭嘅對話根本就係假對話，根本就係無助於修補呢個社會。根本唔會令而家香港嘅局勢變好。其次係關於汽油彈嘅問題，我哋要諗下警察呢幾個月嚟，佢哋原本佢哋嘅行為，佢哋做咗啲乜？我哋睇到早前有報道指出咧，就係國際特赦組織嘅一份訪問咗20幾名嘅一啲人啦，就係佢哋一啲俾人拘捕嘅人士，佢哋喺曾經咧，佢哋見到警員用鐳射筆 去直接照射示威者嘅眼睛，去拷問示威者，甚至乎強迫一個男仔自己拎住支鐳射筆射自己隻眼20秒。佢自己都識講啦，用鐳射筆會着火噶嘛。咁所以我哋見到嘅就係而家警察佢哋做到佢已經咁嘅時候，點解我哋前線手足佢哋掉汽油彈，對比起我哋見到呢啲嘅對比起警察呢啲咁無理嘅行為，我諗大家都明白。其次係我哋見到而家香港我哋已經失去咗好多嘅人，好多嘅義士已經為呢場運動犧牲，好多嘅手足已經為呢場運動俾人拘捕咗。佢哋可能而家正喺而家呢一刻已經俾人去毆打緊，甚至係拷問嘅時候，我諗大家都唔明白我哋而家爭取嘅嘢係唔能夠再退讓。咁繼續講翻林鄭嗰個所謂嘅自述嗰個嘅對話啦。咁其實都好驚㗎，因為林鄭咩都做得出㗎嘛。佢甚至乎呢個對話佢仲要報名嘅時候，唔知會唔會有篩選，係咪先到先得呢？定係會篩選個人呢？呢啲全部都未知之數。林鄭對話想講啲咩呢？佢入邊想做啲咩呢？通通都係冇人知。其實林鄭想知嘅好簡單，示威者要嘅就係5大訴求，缺一不可，就係咁簡單。佢已經知道我哋嘅訴求，點解仲要特登開一個即係對話咧？點解要特登做啲咁嘅嘢咧？呢個根本就係多此一舉。所以我唔能夠代表所有人去話你會唔會參加？就我而言，我係唔會參加。
好，關於手足所講話呢個林鄭嘅對話平台。首先，我哋已經好清晰將5大訴求喺唔同嘅示威場合都再三強調。5大訴求非常之清晰，林鄭月娥政府選擇回唔回應呢5大訴求，完全係喺佢嘅決定嘅手中。佢要嘅對話，只不過係會換嚟我哋更強烈咁樣爭取要求5大訴求。當佢已經決定咗剩低嘅4個訴求，佢都唔會回應嘅時候，呢一個咁樣嘅對話前設，係咪真係令到呢場對話更加有意義呢？我哋睇唔到，所以我哋只係可以喺度話呢個對話平台，只不過係林鄭月娥用嚟換取更加多時間，去俾佢平息呢一場運動嘅手段。呢個政府唔係真心回應我哋嘅訴求，佢只不過係不斷咁樣用唔同嘅手段去瓦解呢一場運動，所以我哋唔會俾佢呢個手段喺呢個情況之下得逞。
我哋有一條真係最後一條嘅追問啊！大家記者唔好意思啊。
唔好意思，香港電台想問翻咧，即係警方記者會嗰度咧，就啱啱就講咗，就話即係有一啲嘅網民啦，喺網上面咧就喺毫無事實基礎嘅情況之下，就包括係即係話有人被殺啊，有人被強姦啊之類咁嘅指控，係啦，咁就話呢啲係一個嚴重嘅指控嚟嘅，咁就批評係一啲造謠。係造謠嚟嘅，咁想問一問你哋對於呢警方批評一啲人造謠，你哋有咩回應咧？喺呢方面，唔該。
多謝記者提問。咁首先就係我哋對於嗰啲俾人已經自殺咗同埋俾人侵犯嘅手足，我哋真係覺得好遺憾。其次係，究竟呢個運動，呢場運動喺831當日，係咪真係有人已經因為咗我哋犧牲呢？我哋而家要嘅就係公佈翻當日嘅閉路電視呢個訴求。警方到而家，甚至係我哋到而家都冇一個答案。煩請各位傳媒朋友幫我哋揾出真相，呢個好重要。其次係，我哋知唔知而家手足犧牲呢？當然知啦。我哋有7個手足已經因為呢場運動去世咗，佢已經為咗我哋去犧牲自己嘅未來前途，甚至佢哋生命都冇埋。我哋見到嘅就係呢啲手足，佢哋 佢哋死佢哋為呢場運動犧牲咗啦。咁所以我哋見到嘅就係警方而家喺度係咁指控網民造謠嘅時候，警方要做嘅就係咪公開片段咯，去揾片段咯。我哋要知道嚟嘅真相，究竟當日有冇手足因為喺地鐵站內犧牲，呢個就係我哋想知道嘅嘢。
好多謝晒各位記者，因為時間有限，所以今日嘅記者會到此為止。最後一次好多謝各位記者到場。如果大家仲有疑問，可以留低個問題同埋聯絡資料，我哋會書面回覆。而今日我哋所播放嘅片段都會 upload 翻喺我哋嘅 Facebook channel 同埋 YouTube channel 嘅。Unfortunately, we will need to announce the end of today's press conference. We would like to thank everyone for coming today again. We hope you have taken something away. If you still have any outstanding question that you didn't manage to get in, we do apologize for that. But you are more than welcome to leave behind your contact and we'll get back to you with a written response in due course. Many thanks indeed again for coming today. And the video played today will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel. Thank you.